thank you for everyone for joining and for SCORE for having me in. Um, you know, the agenda, as you can see, they've already taken you through my background. I won't spend it, but I did spend 23 years in the insurance industry, um, more on the personal insurance side, but I definitely have, I'm definitely an expert and I feel confident in the material that we're covering today. I'm going to take you through some slides. It'll probably only take 30 to 40 minutes, the slides. It's designed to really facilitate a Q&A. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll make sure that everybody has my contact information if there are questions after the presentation that I can't answer. One thing I will say is that in New Jersey and in a lot of places, insurance is heavily regulated. So if you have a specific insurance question about what type of business insurance I need for my specific exposure, I may not be able to answer a specific question like that in the Q&A because I'm not licensed to do so at this time. But that might be the only thing. So just think of that as you go through and think about your questions. I just wanted you to keep that in mind. Otherwise, I'll do my best to answer the questions. Okay? All right. So here are our 5 objectives for today. It's intended to be somewhat of a refresher, but generally speaking, we're going to define the term insurance, what an insurance policy is, explain why insurance is important for a small business, identify the types of insurance required for a small business and the others that should be considered, identify steps you should take to secure insurance coverage for your small business, and identify the steps you should take once you have insurance. Okay, so again, those are our 5 objectives, and the beginning should be hopefully a refresher. So the first definition that I wanted to make sure we all understand, I know it seems sort of basic, but if we're going to do insurance 101, I wanted to make sure that we just start with, so what the heck is insurance to begin with, just to make sure that we're all sort of level set on the same definition, as basic as that might be. But the bottom line is that insurance has been around for hundreds of years. It started, I believe, in the UK at Lloyd's of London, in Philadelphia, in the East Coast, in the USA. So when I was in the insurance industry, I used to tell people, you know, it's always going to be there. It's an industry that's always going to be there because there's demand. And people always need insurance. But the bottom line is that, you know, you have an agreement with an insurance company, you pay them an annual premium, and then if you have a covered loss, they pay for your claim. That's the way insurance is supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to look, and it's supposed to work. So what is an insurance policy then? So if you've seen an insurance policy, it does look a little bit confusing. They're designed to be confusing. It is a legal contract that you have with the insurance company. It's why that, you know, it's a heavily regulated industry as a result. But the bottom line is that an insurance policy is a contract that you have with the insurance company. It generally lasts 12 months and then it comes up for renewal, in which case you don't really, unless you pay the premium, it is not in effect. Okay, and that's generally the way it works in insurance. So if you don't pay the premium, you have a policy or you had a policy and you didn't pay it, it's probably not in effect anymore anyway. Okay? So why do we need insurance? This is, you know, this is the main point of our presentation. I think Jane and I, as we've discussed it, and as I joined SCORE earlier this year, even before COVID started, it was clear that I think we had a lot of concerns that not enough people have insurance. And they're not sort of asking them the question, why do I even need insurance? Like, what's the point? Who cares about insurance? And a lot of people that we talk to in our day-to-day, just fundamentally speaking, have not answered this question. Like, why do we need insurance? And a lot of them don't have insurance. And I think that kind of keeps us up at night. So the number one reason that we have insurance is because we need to manage the risks involved with business. Okay. Risk management 101 is every business owner is trying to minimize the risks that face it every day. Okay. So responsible business owners, and this might be the most important thing. Like if you were going to write down one thing I'm going to say today, and if you don't have insurance, this is kind of that answer. Risk management 101, protecting your business from risk. Insurance has always been and will continue to be, has always been one of the most important tools. Okay. There's also some things here that we'll get into in further slides, but clearly protection of your assets, your business assets, cash and property. We'll talk about property insurance, protection from loss of income interruption, something that we're dealing with today in the COVID world. Continue financing, maintaining your continued financing. We'll talk about that a little bit. Protection from injuries and damages that you receive or that you inflict on others. What happens if you hurt somebody through your business? Will you be protected? What if you get sued? There's a whole host of coverages called liability insurance that we'll talk about down in the presentation. Okay. There's legal and regulatory requirements. I'll talk more about that soon, but a lot of insurance, because it's so important for businesses to have insurance, a lot of it is required by law, whether it's federal or state or local. Clearly, insurance is needed to retain key employees, like for your benefits, your health insurance. Business continuity, whether it's disease, pandemic, floods. New Jersey is a much more dangerous place than it used to be, 20 years ago. And again, as I said, protection from errors. So if you have an error or your business makes an error and it hurts somebody, are you protected? And I think a lot of people are not protected right now. Financing, this is sort of the last piece on this. Why is it important? In our experience and in my experience, if you're going to ask a bank to finance you as a new business, or you're going to go talk to investors, they're going to want to see that you have your insurance buttoned up. It's like one of the first questions that they ask. How's your insurance? Are you sorted? And if you're not, that may hurt your ability to get financing, okay, or maintain financing. So again, if you're making a list of why do I need insurance, I think this is just one more important. Okay. All right, moving on. So these are 5 areas that we're going to, in terms of insurance, that we're going to drill down on a little bit more in the presentation. As I said, insurance, number 1, insurance that your business may require. What is required by law? And there are a lot of insurance that it might surprise you, the list of insurance that's required by law. Other types that you should consider, location-related considerations. How expensive is my insurance going to be? That's a tough question because it really does depend. But I'll give you some information there. Selecting a policy, an agency, and an agent, and then what to do after the purchase. Okay, so these are the 5 things we'll drill down on a little bit, and then we'll have some Q&A on those. All right, great. So moving on, as I said, because it's so important that people have certain types of insurance, it's a heavily regulated industry, there are a lot of federal, state, county, and local governments require certain types of insurance. We see this on the personal side where we have to get auto insurance. We see this on the business side where you have to get commercial auto insurance. We see this in medical insurance. So the bottom line is that and I'll run through a few more, but my recommendation is always the first thing you should check is it required in my state or in my town to have a certain type of insurance? And if it is, you need to know that and you need to get the insurance. Because then if you don't have insurance when it's required, now you have, in addition to having, you have risk for compliance issues, or what we used to call a compliance risk from your lack of insurance coverage. Okay. Workers' comp. Most people are, I think, familiar with what this term is, but the bottom line is this is protection This protects you pay for the policy, and then if your employees get hurt, it protects them against illness or injuries that they have at work. It pays for rehab, retraining. There's payments to beneficiaries and medical payout limits. And this is number one. If you have an employee, this is required through either a private or state administered pool. So workers' comp is an absolute requirement by the government. I know in New Jersey, it's absolutely required. So if you have employees and you don't have workers' comp insurance, you definitely have a compliance risk right now. Another one is unemployment insurance. This, everybody, I think, hopefully is familiar with what unemployment insurance does, but essentially it's, for people who are willing to work and are actively searching, it provides them voluntary paid leave. Employers pay into this. And again, this is something that if you have employees, it's required by the Federal Department of Labor. So I've got a link on here to the presentation. But again, what we're trying to do here is raise awareness. If you have employees, you need workers' comp insurance, and you definitely need to start researching some unemployment insurance as well. So now we're looking at other coverages that should be considered, okay? So what happens, again, if you get sued? What happens if your business damages someone or they damage you through your business? All of these things are completely excluded from any type of homeowner's policy that you may think you have. So liability insurance protects you from lawsuits. There's something called professional liability or errors and omissions, sometimes known as E&O. Essentially, that's for people like doctors and lawyers and insurance brokers, to name a few, who need this type of errors and omissions coverage to protect them from lawsuits. There's something called general liability, which everybody needs. There's something called umbrella liability, which provides additional and larger limits of general liability. That's why it's called an umbrella. There's something called directors and officers insurance, which protects them from, if they are deemed to be negligent and they get sued, that directors and officers coverage kicks in. And that's one where we'll definitely have, in future presentations from other SMEs that we're talking to, we expect to have a lot more information about directors and officers as well. This last one, employment practices liability insurance. Again, if you have an employee, this protects you against if you sexually harass the employee. I think it's also unfair termination. If you discriminate against the employee and they sue you, that's what employment practices liability insurance does. It protects you from that risk. So again, this is not required by law, but it definitely keeps me up a little bit at night that a lot of people don't have this insurance, or that they just don't know that they need it. Okay. All right, moving forward. Other types to consider. Again, this is not required by law, but I like to call property insurance. This is your stuff. If you were able to sort of pick up your business in your hand and shake it, what would fall out? That's all your stuff. Okay. And I know that's kind of that's a unique way to think about it. But a lot of people are like, I don't understand what's the difference between this, or what's the difference between that? What's the difference between my business location and what's the difference between my inventory? So that's one way to think about it. But this is absolutely, New Jersey is a catastrophe state right now. I mean, we have a little hurricane out there today. The weather is definitely changing. Climate change, in my opinion, is definitely a risk. And not having any property insurance to cover your building, your equipment, your inventory, or to protect against catastrophe losses, that to me is a major concern. Flood is always included in these policies, and it's, again, in New Jersey, a lot more of the state is now a flood zone, unfortunately, based on the weather and how the weather has changed. So this is absolutely something that I think everybody out there should be thinking about. And I'll reinforce this later in a few slides, but if you think that a homeowner's policy that you have covering yourself includes this property insurance, it really does not. A few others to consider. There's something called a business owner's policy, which is really just a package policy that gives you some fire coverage, it gives you some property coverage, and it gives you some liability coverage. But it's more, so you might hear that out there as you start asking questions. Somebody might say, well, are you interested in a BOP? And that's all that really means. It's business owner's policy. Clearly a coverage that's paying a lot of claims right now has been a business interruption, loss of income. This is in the COVID world. This is a key coverage right now that is paying a lot of claims. So it's something to, again, to consider. Life insurance, some companies think it's important that their key executives have life insurance. And disability insurance, again, is another one that, like New Jersey definitely requires disability insurance as well. So these are just a few more to think about. Some are required, some are, like disability is definitely required. Okay. So again, just to reinforce this, if you're going to think about one thing, your traditional homeowner's policy, a lot of people are working from home right now, and I think they might perceive that their homeowner's policy is going to just cover them for their small business that they're conducting at home. And so I think if we raise awareness today to ask you to go back and look at your policy and really see what it covers, my experience is that most homeowners policies, if not all homeowners policies, have a very clear business exclusion. There may be some minor stuff if it's incidental business, but any kind of real business exposure, it is not the intention of your homeowner's carrier to pay those claims. So if you have inventory, if you have your location, if you have employees working out of your home, I think you really need to think about talking to a broker, as we'll mention and we'll go through, and maybe looking at really reading your policy and seeing what's actually covered. That's like a clear recommendation. Make sure I'm right, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's not the intent of your homeowner's policy to pay business claims. Okay. How expensive is your insurance is another question that I think we get all the time. And so that's one that's definitely going to be difficult for me to answer. I think it really kind of comes down to how much risk you were willing to take. What's your appetite for risk? Different people have different risk appetites. I think one thing that, your business, how much your insurance is going to cost is really 100% dependent on where exactly your business is located, what it does, how it does it, and the type of exposures and risks that you have. So where it's located matters, what type of business it is matters, and how interested and how eager the insurance company is to write that type of business. It all affects your rate. But again, it's definitely not, in my experience, I think it's a lot less expensive than people might think. Okay, good. All right, we're doing great. Selecting a company and agent. So this is where, my general advice is that the best thing you could possibly do is call up somebody that's in business and ask them how they handle this. Like referral is key, and really talking to a lot of different people about this and seeing how they handle it is a great idea. So like you definitely want to shop around. You want to talk to multiple people, maybe talk to other people in your business sphere. Get referrals. That is key. When I was looking for somebody to help us, I called my insurance broker and I said, I know you don't do commercial insurance, but how can you help me? Do you know anyone who can help you? And they were very willing to give me a referral on a commercial SME. So you might find that any insurance policy that you have right now, they might do commercial insurance. They might be willing to give you a referral. The things you want to look at in an insurance carrier are they financially stable? New companies are generally not recommended in my experience. Like you want to look for somebody who offers what you need at a good price, and they're going to pay your claim. So claims response is key. If they're not going to pay your claim and they're just going to nickel and dime you, then it's not really worth even having the insurance. So is it stable? Are they financially going to be there? Do they really have an appetite for what your exposure is? And do they pay claims? I think those are all really important things. And this, to me, this is just like any other situation where if you're going to buy a car or you're getting a bid from a vendor, you're going to get multiple bids. Get 3 to 4 bids, get as many as 5, see what those different areas, how they respond to you and answer your questions. And then really sort of go from there. Selecting a policy, again, this is where, I have to be somewhat careful to say I don't want to say anything that sort of is what a licensed agent should and ought to say. So this is very general. But the bottom line is, does my retention make sense? Are my deductibles appropriate? If you can't, if you have a $5,000 deductible, can you afford it? Is the insurance too expensive? Maybe a higher deductible is better for you. Maybe you're not going to submit small claims. So you really want to look at different policy costs, different deductibles, and again, make sure you get a lot of different options. I think this is a situation, there are agents out there. There are brokers out there. Some of them are independent agents. Some of them work with multiple companies. And I think that's really where, if you're not sure, I recommend speaking to them. They're typically very, they get paid to help people find insurance and answer insurance questions. And I think they can be very, they can help you build your knowledge. Is the coverage sufficient? Like, what keeps me up at night as a business owner? What is it really that I want to make sure I have coverage for? Is it a flood? All right, well, make sure you have flood insurance then. Will it allow you to grow? That's another good one. Okay. And can it be changed? I mean, I think most policies allow for changes to happen during the policy year. So you want to just make sure that the company is flexible. Okay. Moving on. All right. So what to do? We're doing great. We're almost done. So what to do after the purchase? So now you bought your policy. You want to keep that policy handy just in case you need the claims number readily available. If you have a loss, you might want to talk to your broker about whether or not you submit the claim. What types of claims are we submitting? If you submit a lot of small claims, it may lead to problems. So you really need to just think about, do I want to submit this claim? Yes or no. If it's big enough and it's appropriate, then that's what you should do. That's why you have insurance. And you want to, this is a legal contract. So it's definitely something that you want to read every year. Make sure you understand the fine print and that there's no surprises in there for you. And I think it's good to meet with your agent. If your business is changing, say it's growing, it's good to meet with the agent from time to time. See them once a year. There's no harm in that. Let's see. Financing no longer needed. You can make changes there. This says handle credit responsibly. I think what this is trying to say is that if your financial score, whether as an individual or as a business owner, is not very good, your insurance will be more expensive. So the more you pay your bills, is no different than for individuals in the world. The more you pay your bills and have good credit, the better your insurance premiums will be. And submit your claims. I think if the claim is appropriate, that's what insurance is for. You want to just make sure, you want to just look back at that year and say to yourself, I submitted the claims that I had, and I submitted the claims that were appropriate. And then I feel comfortable with that. Okay, good. All right. So all right, Noel, I'm going to stop sharing quickly. And then we'll go to Q&A. Noel, I think you might be on mute.
Okay, this is Jane behind the scenes here. I don't see any questions. So does anybody have any questions for Rob? Comments, questions? He'd be happy to answer them.
I'm surprised.
I know. Here's
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you, Jane. Go ahead.
We got one question here from Anna. She said, thank you. I'm a professional home organizer.
Mhm.
She's a sole proprietor, no employees. Should I go for a HOP or just general liability?
You mean in terms of an HOP, like a homeowner's policy?
Yeah, she put HOP. I presume that's Anna, is that right? Let's just assume it's a homeowner's policy or just general liability.
Yeah, I think, again, that's sort of, I'm just trying to raise awareness. I would just, if you think that your homeowner's policy is covering you, my advice would be just to read your policy and look for what is known as a business exclusion. It may not be, it's likely, I don't think it's going to be covered. That would be my instinct. And you may want to think about business insurance and taking yourself through this process.
Okay, Laura says, I'm a realtor and my broker includes E&O. Should I get more personally?
If it already includes it, it's so you are, if she already has it, I mean, I guess it really depends on how much you think you need. It usually, like, sometimes the limits are low. So if it's like $50,000 of E&O, it's like more incidental coverage. Yeah, it might be worth at least getting a quote to see how much it would cost. It might not be that expensive, and you may find you could get, $1 million of coverage for a dollar amount that's really not that offensive.
And we have a clarification from Anna.
Uh-oh.
She said, should I go for a B as in boy, BOP?
Oh, yes.
Or just general liability?
Yeah. No, I would look, I mean, I guess it depends. Like, that's, again, this was exactly why, I have to be careful because I am not a licensed broker or a licensed agent. So I want to be careful. My advice would be that,
what's a BOP?
A BOP is
for
like
the uninitiated.
Yeah, but that's just a business owner's policy, which would include some property coverage. So if she's asking, should I get business property coverage as well to cover my stuff? And I guess it depends. If you have stuff that's really related to your business, then I would say it might be worth getting a quote for that and general liability as well. So probably both. But if you don't have any stuff, or it's not that much, I guess it depends.
And someone, Michael wants to know, yes, we will be sending the presentation deck out to everyone afterwards.
Yes, and there's all the links it will be included too. Oh, and my contact info, I forgot. My contact info is in the slide deck as well. And my email is around also on my visual. So that should help as well.
This is Noel. Thank you, Robert and Jane. You've been very helpful as I stumbled through this. Can everybody see the Q&A slide that I have put up, which contains the address of the Central Jersey SCORE website? Is that visible?
Yes, it's there.
Okay, great. On that website, on the landing page, the first page, up near the top, there is a button that you click on and you'll be taken into where you can submit a request for a mentor. So please think about the benefits to you and your business, and then give us a call. Thanks very much.
Okay, we've got one more question here from Robin.
Okay.
She said, what other professionals require professional insurance? And where can she find a list for New Jersey business owner requirements?
Or whether or not you need business insurance? That's a good question. I would probably just start. I know this might sound basic, but if I were you, I would just start with a basic Google search and just see what's required and kind of go from there. Um, I guess it
The New Jersey.gov.
probably has it there
Right.
as well. So I would start with a Google search and then NewJersey.gov, as Jane mentioned, definitely.
And what other professionals require professional insurance?
Like professional liability?
Yeah.
I think anyone, again, if you can, the bottom line is, and I guess that's a great question. So I guess it's good because we got people maybe a little scared. But if you might get sued, if somebody might sue you, liability insurance is there to protect you from getting sued. So that's the type of insurance I think, if you have an exposure, you definitely should look at liability insurance for sure.
And then Brad is saying, I have professional liability insurance for my architectural practice. He's a single member LLC. Is there any overlap or redundancy between this professional liability insurance and the other types you discussed?
I don't think so. Usually they're designed so that there's not a lot of overlap. So like if you have stuff and you have property, then that's what the property insurance is based on. I think the other stuff, the errors and omissions coverage, like that's something very specific. If you have this type of profession and if you have a problem and you do something that damages somebody else, your policy will cover it. So it should be, these things are sort of designed to build on one another. So general liability is separate from like errors and omissions and things like that. So hopefully there's not a ton of redundancy. And you could certainly, again, that's a great question for if you work with an insurance professional already, that's a great question for a licensed insurance professional.
And someone is asking, can you expand a bit more on the BOP insurance and insurance for nonprofits?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still learning a lot more about business for insurance for nonprofits, but my perception is that it's obviously still needed. So, and not-for-profits I think that was one where we're hearing that a lot of people don't have insurance and they're sort of using their they think they're using their homeowner's insurance. And it sort of scared me as I sort of spoke to a few of our business owners and a few of my mentees. Yeah, the business owner's policy, it's called a BOP. And it's very, you can Google that and get some good information as well. But it just stands for business owner's policy. It is designed to provide property coverage for your stuff and is designed to give you liability coverage to protect you from getting sued in a general way. So if your business hurts someone, it would give you liability and you get sued. That would pay that claim. If you have stuff and you have a fire, like you might have 10,000 of contents coverage or property coverage, and then that's what you need to prevent a loss.
And in my experience, nonprofits have the same risks as profit, whether you're a profit or a nonprofit, the risk is there.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Yes, the answer is not-for-profits definitely need it. And we've counseled a few people and they've been able to secure it. I think that it might just be a little bit trickier. The only thing I would say is it might be not every insurance carrier wants to write not-for-profits. So you might just find that some carriers are very open to like writing restaurants. Some are open to writing not-for-profits. Each one has its sort of appetite. And you just have to shop around and find the ones that do the best for you. But thank you.
And Megan is wanting to know, do we need workers' compensation if we have no employees?
No. No, but as soon as you do, it's required. I'll answer that one. I feel comfortable. I will get. No one wants to go to insurance jail, Jane. You know, it's a scary place.
True. That's true.
Lonely.
And somebody has said here, and this is probably a good comment. Thank you, Faustina. The State Department of Insurance might be a good place to go to get some additional information as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
And then somebody laughed at your insurance jail.
Yeah. No one wants to go there. What else?
A question from Anna, do you recommend any local insurance companies?
That's a great question. I think that's where I have to be careful, you know, and I want to have a follow-up session where we have somebody who is a licensed insurance broker. So I probably should have said this at the beginning. So this is sort of phase one to raise awareness. But phase two will be coming hopefully either in the month of November or in December. And we expect to have a licensed agent and broker able to answer some questions and probably answer more detailed questions that, you know, we've sort of raised the concern about. And we expect to have that for you soon. I really am hesitant to give you a specific recommendation for a carrier that I think is great, because if it's not great, then that could be a problem for me.
And just in general, as SCORE mentors, we do not give specific recommendations for vendors of any kind. We can direct you to how you can find those vendors. Right. And we could give you maybe 2 or 3 that you might contact, but we do not make specific recommendations.
But I think, you know, I think my advice is, it's a great question. And I guess it's good, Jane, like we're saying, that's a good question. It's good that people are asking that question, because it means we sort of did our job, which will sort of hopefully raise awareness. But I think the bottom line is that there's a ton of people that you could call people that do the business that you do, and probably ask that question. Who do you have your insurance? What do you do for your insurance? And I think you could start getting some names and some numbers probably pretty quickly if you talk to people in the business that you do. Anybody else?
Well, I think that's, Noelle, do you see any other questions?
No, unfortunately, I cannot see chat on my screen, but I see the Q&A, and I think you've covered them very well.
Okay, good.
And I think they were great questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you. And it's, of course, it's great that we have you guys here too, because certainly like, you know, newjersey.gov is a great resource. It's always the best place to start as well. So I guess the only other thing I would just want to say is that in the slides, there's links. Please go ahead and use those links. You know, it should refer you to certain places. And my contact information should be going around as well. And as we said, please sign up. This is just, SCORE is such, I've just started working with SCORE about 10 months ago. And it's a fantastic organization. And I think we're doing really good things. So please sign up if you think we can help you. And that's it.
Very good.
Thank you.
All. Have a wet but good day.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna leave the session, right, guys?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Bye.